It started with a birthday dinner no one came to, and ended with a DNA test that blew everything apart. I spent 3 weeks preparing for my 68th birthday. 3 weeks choosing the right flowers, polishing the antique china my mother gave me, and finalizing a menu that took days to perfect. Roast beef with rosemary garlic potatoes, and my signature cinnamon apple cake, the one my grandson Noah once called magic. I even practiced my handwriting for the place cards. One for Jacob, my son, one for Vanessa, little Lily and Noah, even my sister Carol. 8 seats perfectly spaced around a table that hadn't seen this much effort since Christmas 2 years ago. By 6 o'clock the candles were lit. The roast was warm. The dining room glowed with that golden kind of light that makes everything feel like a memory before it even happens. But no one came. I double-checked the time, checked my phone for texts. Nothing. At 7:15, with my hands shaking slightly, I opened Facebook, a reflex more than anything. And there it was, a photo. Vanessa radiant in a beach hat, Jacob grinning in swim trunks, the kids burying each other in white sand, Carol sipping something from a pineapple. The caption read, "Best family escape ever." So lucky to have these people, I stared at it like it might change if I blinked hard enough. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. A text from Jacob. "Sorry, forgot to tell you we'd be away. Happy birthday, though." That was the moment the air left the room, not because they were gone, but because I wasn't even a footnote in the plan. It wasn't a forgotten date. It was something colder, a deliberate exclusion. And I stood there in my navy blue dress with the pearl buttons, the one Jacob always said made me look elegant, realizing that for the first time in my life, I had truly been left behind. Have you ever had a moment like that where the silence around you wasn't just empty, it was intentional? I used to believe family meant forever, that love showed up, that birthdays mattered. But that night, I learned something else. Sometimes being forgotten isn't an accident. It's a message, and I heard it loud and clear. That night, after the roast had gone cold and the candles burned down to wax puddles, I sat in the quiet and let myself feel what I'd been trying to deny for too long. It wasn't just about this birthday. It had been happening for years, hadn't it? Subtle things, quiet little shifts, the kinds of moments you excuse at first because you love someone, because you want to believe the best. But once I saw that photo on Facebook, once I felt that crack in my chest, I couldn't unsee the pattern. I thought back to Noah's 4th birthday. I remember I'd spent 2 days crocheting him a dinosaur blanket, little green and yellow spikes, a tail, even a hoodie. I was so excited to give it to him at the park party Vanessa had planned. I'd written the address down twice. I had even printed the invitation she emailed. But when I got there, the park was empty. I called Jacob, confused. He didn't answer. Then Vanessa picked up. Her voice was sugary sweet, but I could tell it was practiced. "Oh, Marianne, didn't Jacob tell you? We had to change the location last minute. Noah got a little overwhelmed at the other park last week, so we moved it to a quieter spot, where I wasn't. By the time I got to the new location, the party was nearly over. The kids were tired, the cake was gone, and Noah was napping in his stroller. Vanessa gave me a quick smile, then a glance that said, 'Why are you even here now?' I handed over the blanket. No one even unwrapped it. And then there was Lily's winter recital, the one where she was supposed to play the triangle in her kindergarten orchestra. I'd asked Vanessa twice what time to be there. She said it's just a quick performance during early drop-off, like 7:15 a.m., way too early for most grandparents, but I went anyway. And when I walked into the school office, they told me the recital had already ended. I caught a glimpse of Jacob through the glass holding Lily's coat, laughing with Vanessa and one of the teachers. I ducked out quietly before anyone saw me. I didn't want to be that grandmother, the one who makes a scene. Still, something inside me sank that day. I didn't know it yet, but that was one of the first times I started to feel like a ghost in my own family. And then, Christmas. I had planned for weeks. Stockings handmade, crafts a turkey brined for 2 days. I even set up the old ceramic village in the hallway like I used to when Jacob was little. It lit up the whole house in warm white. 2 days before Christmas Eve, Vanessa called. Her tone was different this time, clipped almost managerial. "Hey, Marianne. So listen, Jacob's been super stressed with work lately, and we're just feeling like we need to keep the holidays small this year. Just the kids, maybe a quiet morning. We hope you understand." What could I say? I smiled into the phone. Of course, I understand. But I didn't. And when my sister, Carol, yes, that Carol called me 3 days later asking about the gingerbread cookies I used to bake, she let it slip. She'd seen photos on Vanessa's Instagram. Big dinner, sparkling lights, neighbors, co-workers, even Jacob's college friend Will was there with his new girlfriend. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. And it hit me, this wasn't miscommunication. This wasn't forgetfulness or stress. This was strategy. Every time I showed up, I felt a little more out of place. Every event I missed was painted as an accident, but it wasn't. It was deliberate. Vanessa was orchestrating something slowly, carefully, and no one noticed. No one except me. It's funny how people imagine being forgotten as a loud thing, as a slammed door or a fight or a confrontation. But the truth is, erasure happens quietly. It happens in the white space between text messages, in the invitations that never come, in the birthday cards that go unacknowledged. It happens in a glance or in the lack of one. I used to think I was just being sensitive, that maybe I was too tired, too old, too fragile to keep up. But I started noticing how Vanessa spoke about me around the kids. "Grandma's resting. Grandma's confused. Let's not bother Grandma with that." And suddenly Lily stopped asking me to braid her hair. Noah didn't run into my arms anymore. They started looking at Vanessa for permission to hug me, to speak to me, to see me. And I began to understand I wasn't just invisible. I was being replaced. I was being rewritten out of my own story. And the worst part, the person holding the pen, was someone I'd let into our family. There was a time when Jacob used to call me every Wednesday night, just a simple routine. Sometimes it was 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. He'd tell me about work at the firm, what Lily had learned in school that week, or how Noah had started calling chocolate milk moo juice. We'd laugh about silly things. We'd reminisce. We were more than just mother and son. We were friends. But slowly, without a clear moment, I could point to those calls stopped coming. First it became every other week, then once a month, then nothing for weeks at a time. By the time my last birthday came around, I realized something that made my stomach twist. I hadn't heard his voice in almost 2 months, not even a voicemail. When I called him, I'd get a rushed text back. "Crazy day, Mom. Can I call you tomorrow?" But tomorrow never came. It kept getting pushed to next week, then maybe next weekend, then silence. At first I told myself it was just life. He was busy. He had 2 kids, a career, a marriage. But the ache inside me knew better. And then there were the moments when I did manage to get him on the phone and something had changed. He sounded distracted, flat, like he was reading lines someone else had written for him. Worse yet, he sounded like he didn't trust me, like he was holding back, afraid to say the wrong thing. Vanessa's name came up in small, clipped ways. "Vanessa thinks you've been sounding tired lately. Vanessa said you seemed confused last time you came over. Are you okay, Mom? Vanessa's just trying to make sure you're not pushing yourself too hard." She always said something quietly behind my back, never directly to me. And every one of those comments chipped away at how Jacob saw me. From a mother to a fragile old woman. From someone he could rely on to someone he needed to manage. And slowly, I started to believe it too. I found myself second-guessing everything I said, replaying conversations in my head. Did I really sound forgetful? Was I really so tired I even started keeping a notebook tracking names, birthdays, times, just in case someone ever asked me again, just so I could prove I was still sharp? But no one asked. They had already made up their minds. And then there was social media. Oh, those photos. Bright, smiling snapshots of holidays and family outings. Vanessa, glowing in every picture, hugging Lily during a school art show, high-fiving Noah on the soccer field, kissing Jacob at some rooftop anniversary dinner. Each frame looked like a Hallmark commercial, every caption polished to perfection. So grateful for our little tribe. Family is everything. Sundays are for snuggle stories and pancakes with these loves of mine. At first I smiled. They looked happy. But then I started noticing something else. Something that felt off. I wasn't in any of them. Not one. Even on occasions when I knew I had been there, like Lily's 7th birthday picnic, I'd been cropped out. Or just not photographed at all. I stood behind the cake that day helping with the candles. But in the photo Vanessa posted, the cake was there, Lily was there, Jacob was there, and I was gone. Like I'd never existed. It's a strange kind of heartbreak to watch your family smiling in a world where you don't seem to belong, to see them creating memories you were never invited to. It's like being the ghost in your own story, present but unseen. And over time, the warmth I used to feel in Jacob's voice began to cool. Affection turned into politeness. Politeness became distance. And finally, that distance became silence. That silence was loud. And I started wondering, was this who I had become to them, a placeholder, a relic, someone they smiled at out of obligation, someone who needed to be handled gently, like fine china they no longer wanted to use. But here's the truth. I may be older, I may have gray in my hair and softer hands, but I am not fragile. I am not confused, and I am certainly not invisible. It took me time to see it, but I finally understood what Vanessa had been doing. She wasn't just reshaping the family. She was reshaping me in Jacob's eyes, in the children's eyes, quietly, cleverly, and completely. And Jacob, my sweet boy who used to call every Wednesday, he didn't even know it was happening. Or maybe he did. Maybe on some level he felt it too, but it was easier to go along than to ask the hard questions. Either way, I had been softened out of the picture, and something in me knew. This wasn't the end of the story. This was the beginning of a reckoning. It was a Tuesday morning, one of those quiet Vermont mornings where the snow falls in slow, lazy spirals outside the kitchen window. I was still in my robe, cradling a lukewarm cup of coffee, watching cardinals peck at the feeder Jacob had helped me hang 3 winters ago. I hadn't spoken to him since the cruise. The silence had grown into something solid, something I could almost touch. I was just about to start clearing the table when the doorbell rang. No one ever rings my doorbell anymore. These days, if someone comes, it's usually prearranged, an Amazon package the neighbor's son shoveling the walk, or a call first to check if I'm up for company. So when I peeked through the frosted glass and saw a man I didn't recognize, my heart skipped. He stood there mid-40s, maybe dark coat hair, dusted with snow. There was something tentative about the way he shifted his weight, like he wasn't sure whether to knock again or walk away. I opened the door just a few inches. Yes. He looked up quickly. Kind eyes, but tired. Deep, tired, the kind people wear when life has been heavy for too long. Are you Mrs. Marianne Hayes? I am, I said, cautiously. He hesitated, then spoke in a voice that was both careful and strangely gentle. My name is Daniel Reyes. I believe your grandson Noah might be my son. There are moments when reality bends, when the air in the room changes. That was one of them. My fingers gripped the doorknob. I didn't move. I know how this sounds, he rushed to explain, and I'm not here to cause trouble. I've thought about this moment for months. I wouldn't be here unless I was sure. I slowly opened the door wider, my voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean? Daniel stepped inside, brushing snow from his sleeves. He didn't take off his coat. He looked like a man prepared to leave if things turned hostile. I was in a relationship with a woman named Vanessa. About 8 years ago. We were together for nearly 2 years. My breath caught in my throat. She disappeared, he continued. No note, no warning. One day she was just gone. Took her things, wiped her social media, changed her number. I filed a missing person report, hired a private investigator. I thought something terrible had happened. He looked away for a moment, gathering himself. I later learned she wasn't missing. She just didn't want to be found. I listened without speaking. The snow was falling harder now. The air in my kitchen felt heavy, like something was about to crack. She was 2 months pregnant when she left, Daniel said. That stopped me. Noah was 7. It fit. Too perfectly. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn envelope. I didn't want to do this, but I had to know. Inside was a photo, a little boy maybe 6 with deep brown eyes, a stubborn jaw, and the same crooked front teeth Noah had when he smiled. This was me, 1st grade. I stared at it for a long time. It was like looking at a shadow of Noah. Same tilt of the head, same soft curls, same intensity in the gaze. He handed me a second envelope. I managed to get a sample of Noah's hair from the barber shop. I had it tested against my DNA. I didn't want to open it. Somehow I already knew what it said. But I did. And there it was, 99.7% probability of paternity. All the breath left my body. The world tilted. This wasn't just about exclusion anymore. This wasn't just about Vanessa trying to erase me. It was about a lie so big. It reached into the very foundation of who my family was. Daniel looked at me, his voice soft but firm. I'm not here to take Noah away. I would never do that, but I can't stay silent anymore. I deserve to know my son. And you deserve the truth. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table, the DNA report still in my hand. I thought of Jacob, of how quickly he'd married Vanessa, how Noah had come just a few months later, early but healthy, they'd said. I remembered how Vanessa always discouraged questions about Noah's birth, how she'd once laughed and said, "Oh, he's got my brother's eyes, strong genes on my side." Now I understood. They weren't strong genes, they were someone else's. Daniel spoke again, pulling me out of my thoughts. She's done this before. My investigator found 2 other men, same pattern. Charm intimacy, then disappear. I think she's been building new lives, one man at a time. I looked at him. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how Jacob would react, how Noah would feel if he ever found out. But I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a theft of truth. And it was time to stop pretending. The DNA results sat on the table between us like a thunderstorm waiting to break. 99.7% probability of paternity. Not a guess, not a theory, a fact. Daniel Reyes was Noah's biological father. I read it again, slowly tracing the words like they might shift, like I might have misunderstood. But there it was, clinical cold and undeniable. I looked at Daniel. He didn't gloat. There was no anger in his expression, only sadness, weariness, a quiet ache that told me he'd carried this truth alone for too long. She left me while I was at work, he said softly. One afternoon I came home and the apartment was empty. No note, no call, just gone. He rubbed the back of his neck, then reached into a folder and slid over a stack of documents, photos, emails, surveillance screenshots, copies of records he'd been collecting over the past year. She changed her name before he continued. Twice, actually. My investigator traced her back to a Margaret Wells and a Catherine Dane. Each time the same pattern: she dated someone stable, got pregnant or hinted at, it disappeared, then resurfaced in a new city with a new man. He flipped one photo toward me. It showed a young Vanessa, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, with a man I didn't recognize. They looked happy. She was leaning into him, wearing the same half-tilted smile she used to give Jacob. That man, Daniel said quietly, believed he was raising his daughter. The room was so quiet I could hear the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I spent years trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, he said. That maybe she'd lost the baby? Maybe she'd moved on and wanted a fresh start. But when I saw a photo of Noah on Facebook, tagged in a post by one of Vanessa's old friends, I knew. He looked exactly like me when I was his age. And then I saw Jacob's last name, Hayes. I stared at the boy I had baked cookies for, held when he had night terrors, watched ride his first bicycle, read bedtime stories to, taught how to tie his shoes, Jacob's son. Or so we'd believed, for 7 years, 7 years of believing he was our miracle baby arriving early but healthy. Jacob had cried when Noah was born. He told me Vanessa had gone into labor almost 2 months ahead of schedule. The doctor said everything looked fine, and Jacob never questioned it. Why would he? He was in love, caught up in the whirlwind. Vanessa had swept him off his feet, and the timing, though fast, had seemed romantic, like fate. Now I saw it for what it was. Soft pause, the weight of betrayal. It wasn't fate, it was design. Vanessa, or whatever her real name was, had calculated everything. She found a man who was kind, steady, trusting, who wanted a family, who wouldn't question her sudden pregnancy, who would step into the role of father without hesitation. And Jacob did exactly that. He stepped in, loved fiercely, protected, provided, raised that little boy like his own, because to him, Noah was his own. I felt a sickness rising in my chest, not just for Jacob, but for Noah too. That innocent child had been born into a story made of lies. He didn't choose any of this, and if the truth ever reached him, if it wasn't handled with care, it could shatter the world he knew. Daniel placed a hand gently on the table. "I'm not here to ruin anyone's life," he said. "I just want to be part of my son's." His voice cracked. I missed his first words, his first steps. I missed the years I'll never get back. But I'm still his father, and I won't disappear again. I looked into his eyes and saw something raw, not bitterness, not revenge, just longing, for connection, for the chance to be what he was always meant to be. I nodded slowly. "He's a good boy," I said. "Loves dinosaurs, likes strawberry yogurt. He gets quiet when he's nervous, and he still sleeps with a blanket that used to be Jacob's when he was little." Daniel smiled, and that smile, that ache and pride tangled together, made something inside me break. Because despite all the deception, all the betrayal, this man loved my grandson. Even if Jacob wasn't Noah's biological father, he was still his father in every way that mattered. But now, there was another father, and somehow, someway, the truth had to find a place among us without destroying everything we'd built. I didn't know what the next step was, but I knew one thing for sure: the time for silence was over. And the truth, no matter how heavy, had finally arrived on my doorstep. I remember staring at that stack of papers Daniel left behind. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, legal filings, old photos with faces blurred by time and distance, all of them connected by a single thread. The woman I thought I knew didn't exist. Her name wasn't Vanessa, not legally, not originally. It was Catherine West, the woman who had married my son, the mother of my grandchildren, the voice who always spoke so gently and smiled so sweetly, the woman who posted cheerful quotes about family, who braided Lily's hair for picture day, who thanked me every year for the Christmas cookies with just the right amount of warmth to make me feel seen, but never quite close enough to feel included. That woman was a mask, a beautifully constructed illusion, and now the paper trail told me who she really was. Catherine West was born in Ohio. The file said she'd entered the foster care system at age 6. Neglect, no father listed. Her mother had overdosed. From there, a carousel of homes, none lasting more than a year. No consistent schooling. No guardians who stayed long enough to leave their names on her transcripts. She aged out at 18, with no records of extended family, no emergency contacts. Just a high school diploma and a pattern of disappearance already beginning to form. Her first marriage came at 22. Robert Kim, Nevada, software engineer, emotionally stable, financially comfortable. Divorced 2 years later, Catherine walked away with a substantial alimony settlement and a sealed non-disclosure agreement. Second marriage, James Fletcher, Oregon, small business owner. A similar story. married, quickly isolated from friends and family, and eventually left behind confused, financially depleted, and alone. She knew exactly what she was doing. Catherine targeted men who wouldn't question her, men who wanted to believe the best, men like Jacob, men like Daniel. She was brilliant in a way that had nothing to do with academics. She knew how to read people, how to mirror their language, how to become exactly who they needed in that moment, nurturing, adventurous, spiritual, maternal. She could become anyone, and she used that gift not to heal, but to consume. Each time she reemerged in a new place, she had a new name, a new wardrobe, a new origin story, always just mysterious enough to excuse the blanks. I don't talk about my past. I was raised by people who weren't really family. I've had to start over before, but I'm better for it. She knew that pain made people uncomfortable, and that if she hinted at it softly, most people wouldn't ask more questions. And when someone got too close to the truth, she vanished. Again. Daniel's investigator found connections to 2 other aliases that may have been hers. A third man claimed Catherine had become pregnant and disappeared, though he could never confirm it. But it matched the pattern. And now, she had rewritten herself into our lives. She met Jacob when he was still recovering from a long breakup. He'd just been promoted, had started volunteering again, was finally moving forward. That's when Catherine, calling herself Vanessa, entered the picture. She made everything easy. He once told me, "Mom, it just feels right. I don't have to work hard to impress her. She just gets me." Within 3 months, they were living together. Within 6, she was pregnant. Or so we thought. I remembered asking about the due date. Catherine gave a vague answer. "He's coming a little earlier than expected," she'd said with a breezy laugh. "He just couldn't wait to meet us." Now I see the truth. She wasn't hurrying the timeline because of excitement. She was covering up the math. She needed a man to claim Noah, and Jacob was perfect, open-hearted, generous, and too trusting for his own good. And once she had what she wanted, a family, a stable life, financial security, she began doing what she always did, cutting away any branch that reached too close to the root. That's when the little exclusions began. The lies about Noah's party, the missed recitals, the canceled Christmas. She wasn't just erasing me from the calendar, she was erasing me from their narrative. Because if I stayed close, if I kept showing up, if I kept watching, I might have seen what she was trying to hide. And now I knew. This woman, Catherine West, had spent years building a fortress of control around my son. She manipulated every glance, every invitation, every silence. And what haunted me most was that it had worked for years. Jacob didn't just trust her. He depended on her. He deferred to her. She'd become the gatekeeper of his life, and by extension of my grandchildren's too. And I'd let it happen, because I didn't see it, until now. Now there was no unknowing, no returning to silence. The question wasn't whether I should act. The question was how. They say hindsight is 20/20, but what they don't say, what they never prepare you for, is how it feels when all the pieces finally fall into place. When you realize that what you called love was in fact manipulation. When all those little red flags you ignored because you wanted to believe the best line up perfectly into a pattern. And now I saw it all. Noah's birth had always come with a story. Vanessa, or rather Catherine, went into labor early, 7 weeks ahead of schedule, Jacob had said. I remember the panic in his voice when he called me from the hospital. "Mom, they're trying to stop the labor, but she's already dilated. It's too soon." But then just hours later, Noah was born. A little small but healthy, pink cheeks, alert eyes. The doctor said it was a blessing that premature births didn't always end so well, and Jacob, bless him, clung to that. He called Noah his early miracle. But now looking back, I knew. Noah wasn't premature. He was right on time. Not for Jacob's timeline, for Daniel's. The math was simple, too simple to ignore now. Catherine had met Jacob when she was already pregnant, maybe barely showing, maybe not at all. But she must have moved quickly, crafted her story carefully. played on his loneliness, his longing for family. Within weeks she was in his life, his apartment, his bed, his heart. And by the time she revealed the pregnancy, it was already too late for questions, too late for doubts. Jacob wouldn't have done the math. He was too in love, too hopeful. He wouldn't have even thought to ask. But Catherine would have counted every day, every week, and she would have planned accordingly. And then came Lily, born 2 years later, the perfect reinforcement to the illusion. A biological child, a child that was Jacob's, with his smile, his dimples, his stubborn little frown when she lost at board games. With Lily in the picture, no one would question Noah, not even me. Looking at them together, a big brother and a baby sister blonde, curls and crayon-colored drawings taped to the fridge, it was easy to believe the picture Catherine painted. The perfect family. But now I saw it for what it really was. A construct, a play, a production designed to keep questions at bay. And I was the liability. I was the one who'd known Jacob's past, who would have remembered the timeline, who would have asked quietly at first, "Isn't this a little fast?" But I didn't ask, because I didn't want to make Jacob uncomfortable, because Catherine made me feel like I was overstepping every time I tried to connect, every time I showed up. But she knew. She knew I was dangerous not because I was cruel, but because I remembered. I remembered when Jacob had last dated someone, when he'd started seeing Vanessa. I remembered the photos he'd sent me just 2 months before the pregnancy announcement, smiling, but still very much single. And Catherine, she couldn't afford for someone like me to start adding things up. So she began to cut me out, subtly, gently, like trimming branches off a tree before they got too close to the roots. The party invitations I never received. The school events I was accidentally given the wrong date for. The quiet, persistent message that I was too tired, too emotional, too forgetful. But I wasn't any of those things. I was just paying attention. And for someone like Catherine, that was the most dangerous thing of all. It's terrifying to realize you've been rewritten in someone else's story, turned from the narrator into a footnote, a side character, a burden. But I see the story now. I see it clearly. And I won't be erased. Not by a woman who treats identity like a costume, not by someone who moves through people like furniture, rearranging until the scene fits her narrative. Catherine had counted on one thing: that I would stay silent, that I would smile through every dismissal, bite my tongue at every exclusion, and sit quietly on the outside while she recast my family in her image. She was wrong, because here's what Catherine never understood. I wasn't just Jacob's mother. I helped build this family. I watched it grow year by year, season by season. I held it together during late-night fevers and hard financial years and broken hearts. I was there long before she ever was, and I would be there long after she was gone. She thought she could erase me, but she didn't know who she was up against. That afternoon, after Daniel left my kitchen and the snow outside began to melt into gray slush, I sat alone for a long time. The DNA results, the documents, the photos, they were all still spread across the table like a crime scene. I looked at them not as evidence, but as pieces of pain, a timeline of betrayals, a breadcrumb trail through the forest of someone else's lies. And then I looked at a framed photo beside the window. It was from last fall. Jacob smiling with Noah on his shoulders, Lily laughing as she reached for a balloon, Catherine, or should I say Catherine West, with one arm around Jacob's waist, the other holding a wine glass, and me, just barely in the corner, half-cropped, half-shadowed. Even in the photo, I was being moved out of frame. I realized something in that moment. I wasn't just mourning the lie, I was mourning the silence, the years I hadn't spoken up, the times I had swallowed discomfort and brushed off gut feelings, the moments I convinced myself that love meant keeping quiet, when really love sometimes means speaking louder than anyone else in the room. So I called Daniel. He picked up on the first ring. "Hello, it's Marianne," I said. "Can we talk?" We met again 2 days later. Same kitchen, same snow outside. But something had changed. This time Daniel wasn't just a stranger with a file. He was a father, a man who had been lied to, abandoned, and replaced. And I was a mother, a woman who had watched her family get rewritten slowly, silently, by someone who knew how to charm and destroy in equal measure. We talked for hours about Noah, about Jacob, about the years we had both missed while someone else choreographed the scenes. Daniel told me things I hadn't known about Catherine's moods, her vanishing routines, how she always seemed to be preparing for her next life, even while pretending to build one. She was always planning her escape, he said. I just didn't see it at the time. I nodded. That's her gift. She disappears in plain sight. We both sat in that silence for a while, not awkward, just heavy. Then Daniel asked something I hadn't expected. What do we do now? I looked at him, not just at his face, but into the question behind it. How do we tell Jacob? How do we protect Noah? How do we bring the truth into the light without letting it burn everyone it touches? Because this wasn't just about uncovering Catherine, it was about protecting the people she had wrapped in her web, especially the children, especially Noah, that sweet boy who called Jacob Dad without question, who clung to his bedtime routines, his Saturday pancakes, his superhero bed sheets, who didn't know, who couldn't possibly know, that his world had been built on someone else's story. I thought of Lily, too. She was only 5, smart, sensitive, always watching. She picked up on tones before she understood words. If this exploded the wrong way, it wouldn't just shatter Jacob. It would echo through the kids. And Catherine, she'd use that. She'd weaponize confusion, twist fear into loyalty, make herself the victim, and us the aggressors. Daniel knew it, too. She's going to spin this, he said. The second she senses anything is off, she'll turn it around on you, on me, probably on Jacob, too. I didn't disagree. Catherine had survived her entire adult life by anticipating suspicion. She was always 2 lies ahead. So we had to be 3 steps further. We made a plan, not to confront, to prepare. We would gather everything, dates, photos, the timeline, every small inconsistency, every breadcrumb she'd overlooked. Daniel would talk to his attorney not to start a custody battle, but to protect himself. To be ready should Catherine try to disappear again, this time with the children. And me, I'd talk to Jacob. Not as a mother accusing his wife, but as a woman who had finally painfully uncovered the truth and couldn't carry it alone anymore. We agreed on something, too, no matter how angry we were, no matter how hurt the children came first. Noah and Lily would never hear us speak in rage. Only truth, only care, only intention, because they were innocent, and they still deserved a family, even if it looked different from the one Catherine had invented. Before he left that evening, Daniel stood at the door, hand on the knob, and said quietly, "You're the first person who's believed me, who really saw me." I looked at him and said, "That's because I know what it feels like not to be seen." And in that moment, I realized something strange and beautiful. We weren't just survivors of Catherine's lies. We were allies, bound not by bitterness, but by the decision to stop being silent, to protect the children, to protect each other, to tell the truth, no matter how carefully it had to be spoken. By Thursday morning, the decision was made. The silence couldn't continue. Not when I knew what I knew. Not when every passing day meant more lies cementing themselves as truth. Jacob deserved to know. The children deserved safety. And Catherine deserved to be seen for who she truly was. So I called Jacob. "Hi, sweetheart. I was wondering if we could all get together for dinner this weekend. You, Catherine, the kids?" There was a pause, not long, but long enough for my stomach to twist. "Everything okay, Mom? You sound serious." "Everything's fine," I said gently. "I just think it's time we had a real family conversation. About us, about the future." Another pause. I could hear Catherine's voice faintly in the background, muffled but sharp, asking questions. When Jacob returned to the line, his voice was more guarded. "Catherine wants to know what kind of conversation." Of course she did. She could smell the shift in the air, even over the phone. "Tell her I'm not upset," I said. "I just want to reconnect. Saturday evening work for you." A few hours later, he called back. 6 o'clock, he said. We'll be there. I spent Friday preparing like I hadn't in years. Not just cleaning, not just cooking, but remembering. I pulled out Jacob's favorite recipes from when he was a boy. Pot roast with garlic mashed potatoes, roasted carrots with thyme, and of course the apple pie he used to beg for on snow days. I set the dining room table with the same antique china I had laid out for my birthday 2 months ago, the birthday no one came to. The irony wasn't lost on me, neither was the symbolism. This time the table wasn't for celebration. It was for truth. They arrived at exactly 6. Catherine West looked flawless. A cream-colored dress, perfect curls, neutral lipstick, the kind of ensemble that said mother, wife, hostess without speaking a word. Her smile was wide white, a performance in full motion. "Hi, Marianne," she said, handing me a bouquet of supermarket roses. Polite, practiced, controlled, Noah barreled past her. "Grandma, I learned to swim on the cruise. Want to see my doggy paddle after dinner." My heart clenched. "Maybe after dessert," I said, ruffling his hair. Lily came in quieter as always, holding her doll close. I kissed her on the forehead. She let me. That was enough. Jacob hugged me warm, but distracted. He looked tired. The kind of tired that lives in your eyes when your mind is always somewhere else. The kind of tired I hadn't seen in him until he married her. "You look beautiful, Mom," he said softly. I smiled. "So do you." The meal started out like most family dinners, surface-level chatter, cheerful stories about the cruise, Lily's new obsession with flamingos, Noah's attempts at underwater somersaults. Catherine played her part beautifully. She cut Noah's meat into small pieces. She wiped Lily's mouth gently when she spilled applesauce. She complimented the seasoning on the roast and asked if I'd considered submitting my pie recipe to a local cookbook, all sugar and silk. But underneath it all, I saw the machinery. When Noah began telling a story about missing me during the cruise, Catherine steered the conversation away, redirecting him to talk about the snorkeling lesson instead. When Lily turned to ask me something, Catherine interrupted with, "Sweetie, use your fork like a big girl." Whenever Jacob leaned in to talk to me, she refilled his water or offered him more potatoes, always with a hand on his arm, always managing the interaction just enough to keep it brief. It was subtle, seamless, masterful, really. The perfect mother routine wasn't just a personality trait. It was a performance one Catherine had been refining for years. But I wasn't watching the performance anymore. I was watching her, and she knew it. There was a flicker in her eyes, a tightness in her smile that hadn't been there before. She could feel the shift, could sense that something was off balance, and that unnerved her. I let the dinner run its course, let the children finish their food and excuse themselves to the living room to play. Let Catherine think she had just barely kept everything under control. Then when the plates were cleared and only the adults remained at the table, I said softly, "There's something I'd like to talk about." Jacob looked up. "Sure, Mom." "What's on your mind?" Catherine reached instinctively for his hand. I noticed the way her fingers tightened just slightly, the way she braced. I folded my hands on the table next to the manila envelope I had placed there earlier, quiet waiting. "I want to talk about truth," I said, "about family, and about what happens when someone rewrites it." Catherine's smile didn't falter, not yet, but I could see it in her posture. She knew. This was no ordinary dinner. This was the beginning of something she had never expected. A reckoning. The manila envelope sat between us on the table. For a long moment I didn't touch it. I just looked at Jacob, at my son, the boy I raised, the man I loved, the father who adored his children, the husband who had no idea his entire life had been built on someone else's blueprint. He looked back at me with quiet concern, fingers still loosely laced with Catherine's. "Mom, what's going on?" I took a breath, feeling the weight of everything we were about to shatter. Then I reached for the envelope. "I need to tell you something," I said gently, "and I need you to let me finish before you say anything. What I'm about to show you will hurt Jacob, but it's the truth, and you deserve nothing less." Catherine didn't speak, but I saw her shoulders go rigid. Her fingers tensed around Jacob's. Her smile, that polished, practiced smile, was frozen in place, like porcelain. I slid the envelope toward them. These, I said, are DNA results. A paternity test. Jacob blinked. For who? For Noah. He froze. Catherine's expression didn't shift, not yet, but her eyes flicked to the envelope with laser precision. I continued. The test shows with 99.7% certainty that you are not Noah's biological father. Silence. So loud it rang in my ears. Jacob stared at the envelope like it might explode. Catherine finally spoke, her voice soft, almost amused. Marianne, I don't know what this is, but I think you've been misled. That's Catherine West, I said. Her mouth snapped shut. That was the moment. That was when it all cracked. Her name, her real name, landed on the table with more force than anything I could have put on paper. The color drained from her face fast and unmistakable. Her grip on Jacob's hand loosened. Jacob looked at her, slowly, eyes wide, blinking in disbelief. Catherine, what's she talking about? I pulled out the second folder, the one with the records Daniel's investigator had found. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, alimony settlements, a trail of carefully severed ties across state lines. Her name isn't Vanessa, I said, eyes on Jacob. It never was. It's Catherine West. She's been married twice before Robert Kim and James Fletcher. Both ended in divorce. Both men cut off from their families just like you. Both financially drained by the time she left them. Jacob turned to her. Is this true? Catherine opened her mouth, closed it. Jacob? He stood up. So slowly it was like he'd forgotten how to move. No, don't, Jacob me. Tell me the truth. Is your name Catherine West? Still she said nothing. His voice cracked. Was I ever supposed to know I saw the moment the mask dropped? Not all the way, but just enough. She looked up at him, and in her eyes was not remorse, but calculation. Measuring what to say, what to admit, what to deny. Then finally she said I did what I had to do. That was it. That one sentence was the end of the performance. Jacob backed away from the table, breathing hard. You lied to me, he whispered, from the very beginning, about who you were, about Noah, about everything. He is your son, Catherine snapped. You raised him. You love him. That doesn't change just because some piece of paper says otherwise. That piece of paper means my whole life with you was built on a lie, Jacob said. He was trembling now, not with rage, but devastation. A man realizing his home was made of sand, and the tide had just come in. I wanted to reach for him, to wrap him in my arms and pull him away from the wreckage. But I knew he had to see it fully, all of it. He had to stand in the ashes if he was ever going to rise from them. I looked at Catherine, no Catherine West, and for the first time she looked small, not just exposed, empty. All the charm, the warmth, the perfectly curated maternal image it had cracked wide open. And beneath it was nothing. Just a woman who had learned how to survive by manipulation, who had loved no one more than the role she played. I wanted a real life, she said suddenly, her voice brittle. I was tired of starting over. I thought maybe this time it could be different. Jacob just shook his head. I thought I married a woman who loved me, who chose me. You did, she whispered. No, he said. I married a lie. And with that truth finally spoken, the illusion was gone. The family Catherine had so carefully constructed had just begun to unravel. Catherine didn't scream. She didn't throw things or beg. She just stood there for a long moment in the middle of my dining room, the same room where she had played the part of perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect daughter-in-law. And then she picked up her coat. Her hand trembled only once when she reached for her purse, and then she walked out the front door without saying goodbye. No tears, no apologies, just silence. It was eerie, really. For someone who had spent years weaving the story of our family so tightly around her own image, she left without looking back. Maybe that was her final trick, disappearing without chaos, so we'd spend years wondering if we had overreacted. if maybe, just maybe, we'd made a mistake, but we hadn't, and deep down, she knew it. The aftermath was not a single moment of closure. It was 1,000 small, quiet reckonings. Catherine, or legally now Catherine West, again didn't fight. Her lawyer contacted Jacobs 2 days later. There would be no drawn-out custody battle, no public scandal. She offered full legal and physical custody of both children, in exchange for no criminal charges and a sealed settlement agreement. Clean, controlled. Her way of vanishing again, not as a villain, but as a woman who stepped away for the good of the children. Jacob agreed, not because he wasn't furious, not because he didn't want justice, but because at the heart of it, he wanted peace. And Noah and Lily, they deserved that more than anyone. At first, the house was too quiet. No Catherine moving through the hallways in soft slippers. No tension humming beneath every morning routine. Just Jacob, the kids, and space. So much space. Jacob was broken for a while. There's no other word for it. Not angry, not defeated, just hollowed out. He didn't sleep much. He didn't talk unless prompted. He moved through the motions like someone trying to relearn their own life. But he showed up. Every morning he made breakfast for Noah and Lily. He brushed Lily's hair into uneven braids and forgot to match socks. He packed peanut butter sandwiches instead of turkey wraps and sang off-key lullabies at bedtime. And slowly he began to return. Grief is a strange teacher. It doesn't rush you. It waits silently until you're ready to feel it fully. And Jacob let it wash over him. Daniel came by often, not with demands, not with legal threats, just with patience. At first he didn't even ask to see Noah. He simply sat at the kitchen table with Jacob, shared a beer, and listened. And then one Saturday afternoon, Noah wandered in during one of those visits. He looked at Daniel with curious eyes, then pointed to the scar on his chin. "How'd you get that?" Daniel smiled. "Fell off my bike when I was 7. Noah nodded slowly. "I did that too. Mine's right here." He pointed to his elbow. From that day on, something began to grow. Not forced, not rushed, just two people meeting each other as they were. As for me, I finally exhaled. For years I had felt like a ghost in my own family, present but unseen, spoken over, redirected, silenced. Now Lily crawled into my lap during bedtime stories. Noah asked me to watch his swim practice. Jacob invited me over for Sunday dinner, not out of obligation, but because he wanted me there. There was laughter in the house again. Messy, unfiltered, healing laughter. And with Catherine gone, the children were lighter. It was in the small things, the way Noah didn't flinch when he spilled juice, the way Lily stopped whispering questions and began singing while she played, the way Jacob smiled when they ran into his arms, unafraid, uncorrected. The whole house exhaled. Not every day was easy. Trauma doesn't vanish. It lingers in quiet moments and unexpected memories. But now when it surfaced, it had somewhere to go. It wasn't buried. It was spoken, held witnessed, together. Sometimes the truth breaks everything open. It shatters the illusion. It cracks the frame you thought was holding your life together. But then, light gets in. And if you're brave enough to sit in that light to feel its sting, to let it show you everything you missed while you were pretending not to see, then slowly, piece by piece, something stronger can begin to take shape. We didn't go back to who we were before Catherine. We became something new, not perfect, but real. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Spring came late that year. Snow clung to the Vermont hills longer than usual, reluctant to melt. But when the thaw finally arrived, it did so all at once, wild crocuses blooming through patches of frost maple trees, shedding their stiffness sunlight, returning with a quiet promise. In many ways, it mirrored our own season of healing, because after everything, we began again. It started with something small, a signature. Daniel came over one Sunday morning with papers in hand and nervous excitement in his eyes. "I've been thinking," he said, sitting at my kitchen table about what it means to be part of something, to really belong. He looked toward the window where Noah and Lily were drawing chalk animals on the back patio. I don't want to take anything away from Jacob, he said quickly. He's Noah's father in every way that matters, but I also want Noah to know I'm here, permanently, proudly. He placed the documents on the table. I've legally changed my name to Daniel Reyes Winters. Winters, Jacob's last name, my last name. I stared at the hyphen. It was simple on paper, just a dash. But to me, it felt like a bridge, a sign that we weren't tearing something down anymore. We were building something new, something that could hold all the love, all the truth, all the complexity, without collapsing. The table was full again, not in the way it had once been. No performance, no tension, no orchestrated harmony. This time it was real. Jacob brought his famous honey cornbread slightly burned at the edges. Daniel made roasted Brussels sprouts, proudly declaring they were Noah approved. Lily decorated place cards with glitter and stickers spelling everyone's names phonetically. Grandma for me, Daddy for both men, Noe and Lily. We passed bowls, spilled drinks, laughed too loud. There was no script, no roles to protect, no lies hanging in the air like unspoken rules. It was messy. It was alive. Co-parenting between Jacob and Daniel wasn't always smooth. There were awkward moments, conflicting instincts, questions about discipline routines, boundaries. But what surprised me most was how naturally they adjusted, not out of obligation, but out of respect, because both men loved the same children deeply, unconditionally. And for all the chaos Catherine had left behind, she had unknowingly given them a reason to rise beyond ego, to choose peace, to work together. I remember one evening after dinner watching Jacob tie Noah's shoes while Daniel helped Lily build a Lego tower. No one was trying to win. No one was pretending to be the only one who mattered. It was just family. Rearranged, perhaps, but whole. And the children. Oh, those children. They were the first to adapt. Children know truth in ways adults often forget. They can feel when something is off, even if they don't have the words to explain it. But they can also feel when things become safe again. When Noah began calling Daniel Dad Reyes, it wasn't planned. It just happened during a school pickup, as casual as a yawn, and Daniel cried in the car for 10 minutes afterward. Lily started asking for bedtime stories from both dads, one to read, one to sing. She'd curl up between them on the couch with her stuffed flamingo and say, "Now it feels right." They didn't need to understand all the legal terms, the DNA tests, or the courtroom whispers. They only needed love, and love, real, steady, honest love, was what they finally had. As for me, I kept cooking. Every Sunday I made something new, or something old. Recipes passed down from my mother or invented on the spot with Lily's help. The table became our anchor, a place to return to no matter how long or painful the week had been. There were no more performances, no more curated images for the world to admire, only real moments, shared laughter, truth spoken freely, and a little boy who knew that both of his fathers, one by love, one by blood, would show up for him without question. I used to believe families were fixed structures, unchangeable, defined by history and biology, but I was wrong. Families aren't built by bloodlines or wedding rings. They're built by truth, by choice, by showing up again and again, even after the storm has passed. So if you've ever felt forgotten, erased, left behind in your own story, please hear me when I say this. You are not too late to begin again. Even in the ashes of what was, something beautiful can still rise, and this time it will be real. There was a time not so long ago when I feared becoming invisible, not in the dramatic sense, not fading away like in stories or songs, just slowly becoming irrelevant, a background character in my own family, a name occasionally mentioned, a phone call missed, a seat at the table that no one noticed was empty. I remember the ache of those evenings, cooking for people who didn't show up, watching photos online that felt like postcards from a life I was no longer part of. I asked myself quietly, over and over, Is this what happens when you get older? When the children grow up and the rhythm of their lives no longer includes you? I used to believe that was the cost of time, that it was normal, that I just had to accept it with grace and keep smiling. But it wasn't normal. It was intentional. And something inside me, something quiet but fierce, refused to be erased. Today my house is rarely quiet. There are toys under the couch cushions, crayon drawings taped crookedly on the refrigerator, mismatched socks in the laundry basket, and glitter in places I can't seem to clean. Lily's voice echoes through the hallway practicing a school song about frogs. Noah races through the kitchen shouting about a science project that involves balloons and vinegar. I've learned not to ask. Sunday dinners have turned into Sunday marathons. Daniel brings tamales his aunt taught him to make. Jacob plays board games with the kids while I sneak spoonfuls of dessert before anyone's ready. There's noise, real noise, not the tension-filled quiet of pretending, but the sound of a family living honestly. It's funny, isn't it? I once thought I had to stay small to keep the peace. Turns out, peace only came once I stopped shrinking. What I found in the end wasn't just justice or a reunion or even forgiveness. It was belonging. Not the kind given out of obligation, not the kind you have to earn with good behavior or swallowed feelings, but the kind that comes from truth even when it hurts. I didn't force anyone to choose me. I didn't beg to be included. I simply stood up with clarity and refused to accept a lie as my legacy. And that changed everything. Not overnight, but slowly, brick by brick, conversation by conversation, one act of courage at a time. My kitchen table, the one that once stood perfectly set for a birthday no one came to, now has new scratches on it, from Lego pieces, from Lily's glitter glue, from Daniel's elbow during a game of Uno. I never buff them out. They are proof that this life is real, that people come here not to perform, but to be themselves. Some mornings Jacob stops by just for coffee. No reason, no schedule, just because it feels right. Sometimes he cries. Sometimes we talk about Noah's laugh and how much it reminds him of the little boy he used to be. Sometimes we don't talk at all. We just sit, together. I used to fear growing older meant disappearing. That one day I would simply stop mattering. That I'd become one of those soft, silent women in the corner of family photos, smiling yes, but forgotten just the same. But now I understand something much deeper. Being central doesn't mean being loud. It doesn't mean controlling everything or making others revolve around you. It means standing in your truth and watching as the right people choose to meet you there. It means refusing to disappear, even when others try to erase you. And in that choice, that firm, quiet choice to stay, you become the anchor, not by force, but by presence. What was lost? A version of family that was never real to begin with. What was found? Laughter, connection. A grandson who knows he's loved by two fathers. A granddaughter who climbs into my lap just to tell me she likes my soup. A son who sees me again, not just as mom, but as the woman who refused to let him drown in a sea of lies. And me, I found myself, still here, still steady, still capable of joy. So if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like your light is dimming, let me tell you it's not gone. It's still in you. All you have to do is stop waiting for permission to shine. Catherine, or whoever she chooses to be next, is gone. No forwarding address, no public scandal, just I gone. I imagine she's somewhere warm, spinning a new name from thin air, practicing a new laugh in the mirror, planting herself in someone else's life, like a vine, beautiful, captivating, and quietly invasive. But what she left behind stronger than her lies, louder than her silence, a family real, imperfect, and wide awake. She tried to erase me, but in doing so she only made my presence impossible to ignore. I'm no longer a footnote in Jacob's life, no longer a ghost in Lily and Noah's story. I'm the person they run to with scraped knees and big questions. I'm the arms they fall into when the world is too much. And I'm the one who kept standing even when no one else could see the storm coming. This home, the one she tried to make cold, is warm again. Not because we patched the past, but because we decided to live in truth. Because we rebuilt brick by honest brick, the kind of family no one can fake. Sometimes I wonder, if Catherine had never come into our lives, would I have ever fought this hard to reclaim my place in it? Would I have learned how strong I really was? How fiercely love can burn when you stop dimming it for other people's comfort? Maybe not, but I know this much now. The worst thing that ever happened to us also gave us back each other. And as I sit here surrounded by laughter, glitter, and burnt cornbread, I know this is home. Finally, fully, home. And now I'll ask you, if you were me, what would you have done? What stayed with me most from Marianne's story wasn't just the betrayal, it was the quiet courage to rebuild. We live in a world that often romanticizes family as if blood always equals loyalty, as if aging means becoming small, quiet, and easy to ignore. But that's a lie many of us swallow in silence. Marianne's journey reminds me that love is not passive. It's not about staying quiet to keep the peace. Sometimes love looks like standing alone at a birthday table that no one shows up for and still refusing to let that be the end of your story. We need to talk more about how manipulation hides in politeness, about how some people erase others not with violence, but with exclusion, dismissal, and perfectly crafted smiles. And we need to remember this: you are not invisible just because someone else wants you to be. There is strength in standing up, in reclaiming your space, in daring to believe that even late in life, you still matter maybe more than ever. If you've ever been erased, overlooked, or made to feel irrelevant, this story is your mirror. And now I ask you truly, if you were in Marianne's place, what would you have done? Drop a comment below, because someone out there might need your voice to find their own.